This is the Conquer Worry Podcast, and my name is Jay Coulter. Our mission is to inspire, educate, and advocate for those who struggle with stress or their mental health. This is your podcast home for inspirational stories and interviews with people who are making a difference in the lives of others.
This episode is sponsored by Jay's new book, predictably called Conquer Worry: How to Build a Simple Daily System to Reduce Stress. Visit conquerworry.com or jaycoulter.com for more details.
Thanks for downloading this episode of the Conquer Worry Podcast. I'm your host, Jay Coulter. Joining me today is 10-year NFL veteran John McGraw. Listeners of this podcast know that we like to tell stories of struggle and redemption, and I can promise listeners that you will not be disappointed with this episode. John, thanks for coming on the podcast.
Thanks for having me, Jay.
All right, so as a way of background, John is an academic All-American out of Kansas State, a second-round NFL draft pick by the New York Jets. He recently retired after a 10-year NFL career that finished with his hometown Kansas City Chiefs. While in the NFL, he served as both team captain as well as team representative for the NFL Players Association, and John also completed business management programs at both Harvard and Wharton. Today, John is a speaker, trainer, and co-founder of a company called Vision Pursue. Now, I want to be clear here. John's become a friend of mine, so I want to take a little bit of a different approach to this podcast and not make it so much of an interview as more of a conversation. So, John, one day over coffee, you told me that you were living your childhood dream of playing in the NFL, and you could not have been more miserable. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so like a lot of small town kids, I had the dream of playing professional sports and playing in the NFL. Actually, I had two dreams growing up in a small town in Kansas. One was to play football at Kansas State. And the second was to play football in the NFL, and I got to do both of those. As you mentioned, I walked on at Kansas State, earned a scholarship, became a starter, and then an All-American, second-round draft pick to the Jets, and spent 10 years in the NFL. You know, and it wasn't until towards the end of my career where I really looked back and began to reflect on that experience, and most of it wasn't a really great experience. And in this one hand, I kind of had this vision of I'm living my dream and getting to do some really cool things. I want to be real clear that there were some really great experiences about playing football at Kansas State in the NFL, great friendships and really cool things. But on the whole, most of it was a very stressful experience, and a lot of pressure and expectations, a lot of uncertainty. And what I realized was that I was just very ill-equipped to handle the pressures that went along with that, and it really diminished the overall experience. And now looking back on it, it really diminished my performance as well.
When you and I went a little deeper on that while we were having coffee, you talked about this concept of A to B. Could you start at the beginning explaining that concept to our listeners like they're in 8th grade? Because I find it to be really one of the more powerful cornerstones of your program.
Yeah. So we're all brought up to think that are all brought up with the capacity to grow and to improve and to master a skill and to become really good at something. And in our culture, athletics and sports are really big parts of it. And so I was fortunate to be a good athlete. And so at a young age, I just began to figure out that, hey, I can improve and I can get better and I can make things kind of the way I think they should look. And we do that in every area of our lives where this is my health and this is my profession, these are my relationships, my finances, and this is how I think it should look. And so I'm going to set out on a course to try and make that a reality. The problem is that what can easily happen is our current situation all of a sudden becomes no longer good enough. And so there's this state of dissatisfaction, a state of restlessness and irritability because things aren't the way they're supposed to be. The other emotion that can be invoked by this is fear or anxiety, because if my life should look different than how it is right now, and it's going to take whatever it's going to take, what if I can't get there? Or in other words, what if I fail? And what if my life is never going to look the way I think it should look? And so pretty soon we get stuck in these two primary motivators of either dissatisfaction or greed, if you will, or fear and anxiety, because what if I can't get there? And for me, for most of my career, anxiety, fear of failure was my big driver. And on one hand, it really helped me to succeed because I was willing to sacrifice and give up almost everything to try to get to that B. That B for me was playing football in college and then playing in the NFL. The problem is it cost me a whole lot. Not only did it cost me really getting to enjoy the experience of living my dream, but as I mentioned earlier, it really cost me performing at my very best, because there's a ceiling that comes with using those dissatisfaction and fear as your motivators. There's a glass ceiling that won't let you really achieve your fullest potential, and I kept hitting that ceiling, and I didn't have the awareness to really recognize it, but my obsession with getting to that next phase in life, getting to that next place, was really the core of a lot of my struggles getting to live my dream.
Always chasing that B. You never get there. You're trying to move from A to B, and as soon as you get to B, it becomes A again.
That's right. Yes. Yep. You realize it's a mental construct. It's something that you have to get to in order to feel okay. And as you said, you get there and it feels good for a few moments, and then the feeling's gone. And pretty soon you're chasing that next thing. And we call it playing the wrong game. And I played the wrong game for a long time. And if you have talent and work ethic and determination and all those things, intelligence, you can play that game for a long time. But pretty soon you find that it really is empty. And there's a much better game to play that not only allows you to perform at a higher level, but allows you to enjoy the experience of life.
To take it to another level, you even said in our conversation once that you were playing a game that you could not win.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, and as you mentioned, the B, once you get to B, it just becomes your new A, and your new A is never good enough. By definition, it's not good enough. And you need that dissatisfaction to be motivated to move on. And so, you're playing a game you can't win. And unfortunately, there's a lot of programs out there that can help you perform better, even mental skills type training programs like what we teach. The problem is it's just teaching you to play the wrong game better. And ultimately, you're going to hit more Bs, and maybe you're going to perform at the highest level, maybe even become a master of what you do. But the problem is what's it really going to cost you? And in the A to B paradigm, there's always a cost. And in my experience and the experience of a lot of guys that I played with, played for, it's just the cost is always more than what you receive in benefit. It's always more, and it's at the end of the day, it's not worth it.
And you reached an inflection point during your career with Kansas City when there was a coaching change, correct?
I did, yeah. So I went from a completely different coaching regime. And in fact, as the new coach and management came in, I was surprised they re-signed me. And so, figuring my career was really coming to an end here, they re-signed me, but I was really a bubble guy and probably a camp guy. More than likely was going to make it through camp. And so what happened for me was I went into training camp for the first time fully expecting to get cut, and that being the case, I really kind of let go of the results, right? I let go of needing things to be a certain way, needing to make the team, needing to perform a certain way. And I just went in and said, hey, I'm going to enjoy my last couple of weeks of football here before football is over. And I still worked just as hard and focused just as hard, but the pressure was off of trying to achieve something specific, trying to get an outcome. And it was really just about the process of playing football again, which one made football a lot more enjoyable. And then, as you can imagine, I ended up having one of the best camps of my career and go from a bubble guy to a team captain. And the next few years of my career, even though I'm declining athletically, were by far the most productive of my career and the most enjoyable of my career. Now, I couldn't sustain it the whole time because I really didn't understand what was going on. But it made a significant shift, and that's really what fascinated me after I retired, to begin studying the psyche of what's going on here in relation to performance, and how a really subtle paradigm shift can make such a huge difference in one's emotional state and also performance.
So, from a bubble guy to a team captain just by changing the mindset of how you looked at performance, that's pretty powerful. I know, and we'll get into this part of the foundations of your program, but I want to talk a little bit about mindfulness. It's not often that you have NFL players talking about mindfulness. In fact, I saw you present to a Kansas City leadership organization. It's a video on YouTube. We'll have links in the show notes. And you asked the audience if they thought mindfulness was just Middle Eastern hogwash. And it was interesting. Most of the folks raised their hand and nodded their heads. Tell us a little bit about mindfulness and how it has helped you develop that performance mindset.
Yeah, so mindfulness is a really great contemplative practice that you can do almost any time. And the practice is really about quieting the analytical part of your thinking mind, or the voice, the chatter, right, that's always talking, and learning how to engage with the present moment, engage with life, which can only ever happen in the present moment right now. And we still need to have that voice, and we still need to be thinking about our life situation, right? I still need to be learning from my past and reflecting on that, and I still want to be projecting that and planning that into the future. That's a really important part of our intelligence. But unfortunately, that part of our intelligence is taken over, where we can no longer step out of that and actually engage with life and what's happening right now. All we can really engage with is a story, right? This narrative that's being told in our head, because this part of our brain only thinks in linear time. And so it can't step out of that story, at least not without some type of external stimulus to do it for them. It can't intentionally step out of it. And that's what I found myself in. I didn't realize that I really wasn't engaged with life. I was just engaged in the story that's being told. And the story being told was oftentimes distracting me from what was really happening, from reality. And so mindfulness is really about engaging with reality whenever you want to. And what you find is in that moment, life is really, really good. Almost all the time, life is really good. And the story is what can get us all out of whack and create a lot of unnecessary emotional volatility for us. And it ultimately diminishes our life experience at the same time. So mindfulness is a fantastic practice. It's a part of our training program that we teach, and can't recommend it enough for people.
Tell us a little bit about the training program.
Yeah, so what we do is go in and do a half day or full day training. The training introduces principles. Some of them make sense. Some of them are counterintuitive based on the ways that most of us have been taught in Western psychology. And so we introduce the concepts, the theories. Then we tell lots of stories and use videos to drive home the application. And then once that is done, then we have developed a mobile app that's designed to deliver daily practices, because this is something that for most just requires daily practice. It's like working out. It requires exercise of the brain, but the key is that it's exercising a very different part of the brain than what we typically exercise educationally and professionally, and even just the way we engage with the world around us. So it's a very different way of exercising, with the goal being to create brain balance between the analytical thinking mind and the experiential intelligence part of our mind. And what we find is that as that balance begins to happen, life experience improves. As life experience improves, meaning the way I'm experiencing life just feels better, I can perform better, I have more energy, I can connect and relate with people better. So the byproduct that a lot of us are looking for, it becomes very natural in that state.
What types of organizations are gravitating towards this type of training?
Yeah, many organizations, large corporations, are recognizing mental skills training and emotional intelligence as one of the leading indicators of success in their organizations. So large organizations like Northwestern Mutual, MetLife, big corporations, big banks, sports teams, individual sports have been on this path for a long time. Team sports are now starting to catch up with the individual sports, recognizing the impact this can have on their players, on their coaches, and on performance. So the key, one of the problems that you get with mental skills training is that a lot of times the mental skills get weaponized. And so mindfulness, for example, can be weaponized. I can use this to get what I want. I can use this to get to more B's. And And that will happen. Mindfulness and other mental skills will help you perform at a higher level, and they will help you get more B's. The problem is that will not impact your life experience, meaning the way you are experiencing the world will not improve. And ultimately, that's what we're all after. The only reason we do the things that we do is because we think it's going to make us feel a certain way. Even the most altruistic aspirations any of us can have, the reason we do that is because we think it's going to make us feel a certain way. Or we avoid certain things because we don't want to, right? We're running away from a feeling we don't want to have. And so that life experience is so critical. And that's the reason a lot of us are chasing all these B's, because we think that that's going to improve our life experience. And the exact opposite happens. The more B's we get, the more B's we want, the faster we run, the faster we chase, and the less enjoyable our life experience becomes.
Well, I can tell our listeners that I have friends who have gone through this program, and they say that it's fundamentally changed the way that they look at performance, and their performance has improved. And most importantly, John, to what John just said, they're happier people in general, which I know you guys are in the process now of looking at ways to roll this out on a more retail level where individuals could get access. Do you have any color on that you could share at this point?
Other than we are really excited to get this out, a consumer model out to as many people as we can. So the focus right now is getting the training videos online and onto the mobile app. So right now, the way it's built, the mobile app supports the training, but it really requires at least a half day of training in order for the mobile app to have a good experience with the mobile app. So we are working really hard to get that training on the mobile app, get it to its bare essentials, so that anyone can download the app, experience sort of these life-changing paradigms, and then begin to practice them on a daily basis.
Okay. Well, so I want to wrap up here with a quote I found from you. So I'm a big believer in goal setting. Always have been. Personally, I have huge goals. I also find myself crushed under the stress of trying to achieve those goals. And one thing I've found from my conversations with John and his partner Russ over the past year is I really look at them through a different light. And this quote from you really sums it up. You said, "Let me be clear. The problem is not that we have dreams or goals. The problem is our minds make them primary. If you train your mind to derive its enjoyment and fulfillment from the process, then everything improves." John, I think that best sums up the offering that you guys have. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, you said it really well. It's a totally different way of thinking, and the way that the analytical mind has been conditioned to think is an either or, right? So either my goals are everything, or goals are, I don't want to have any goals, right? It's all about right now. And what our training and what mental skills training, other mental skills training can help you do is go from this either or thinking to primary, secondary, where two things can exist at the same time. It's just you need to figure out which one's primary and secondary. So a great example of that, and you mentioned it, Jay, is fulfillment and ambition, or contentment and ambition. Most people will say, hey, I can't be content and ambitious at the same time. And we simply believe that's not true. What happens is ambition without contentment is dangerous ambition, because it's all about me. It's all about the ego. It's all about what I need to feel okay and to be more. And so I'm willing to do whatever it takes, even cut corners and manipulate and lie and steal and cheat in order for me to get what I want so I can be okay. It's all about me. But when I start from a place of fulfillment and contentment, now the ambition that naturally comes from that is more concerned with the collective, with the greater good, the whole. It's a we type of ambition. And now it's a really, really healthy form of ambition. And so healthy ambition and fulfillment are completely interdependent. What we would say is that fulfillment and contentment need to be primary. That starts with an internal state. It's not something the external world can give you. And once you're operating from that place, a foundation of fulfillment, now the ambition is good. It's a really good thing. And now I can go and do exactly what you're saying, Jay, which is have big goals, big aspirations to change the world, to make the world a better place. But now, as long as I keep it in that order, it's a really enjoyable experience because I'm building something. It's about the process. But as soon as that ambition, as soon as those goals, those aspirations become primary, where I need those to be okay, this is the way the world should look. And because it doesn't, I can't be at peace. That's when problems begin to arise.
For more information about Vision Pursue, John and his team's offering, please visit visionpursue.com. John, I hope you come back on the podcast when you guys launch a consumer offering. I know there'll be interest in our community.
We absolutely will. Thanks so much for having us, Jay.
This episode is sponsored by conquerworry.org. Please visit conquerworry.org and join our growing community.